What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we have something a little bit different. It's Saturday. I figured we'd have some fun. So we're going to talk through my first official NFL mock draft. We're going to go through all 31 picks because of the Dolphins and give you pretty much my explanation on why I think teams are going to do this. We're going to have some trades in the process. It's early on. I figured we'd have some fun, swing for the fences, get a little bit weird with this mock draft. It's one of the most fun times of the year. As much as I do love to focus on fantasy football, I am also a nerd or just an absolute, I don't know, I'm obsessed with the draft in general. The trades, what happens on the night of the draft, what teams are going to do, what, where. I think this draft is also one of the most interesting ones we've had in some time with like the four quarterbacks up top. You have the Jalen Carter off the field stuff. So a lot of drama going on, a lot of theater. So I wanted to hop on here and give you guys my thoughts for the first down. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you get down below, or not the first down, my first mock. I don't know what I was saying there, but if you enjoy, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
Now look, I don't claim to be a pro here. Pretty much what I'm doing is I'm going through and making picks for each team that I think they are going to do. This is a prediction thing, not what I would do. And if I make a pick that like you don't like that I had your team make, you can tell me down below in the comments. But like also, it's a mock draft in the early April. What I put here has no effect on how your team is actually going to make a pick. So like, there's really no reason to get mad. Also, I'm having some fun here, but also like I'm not a complete I'm not a complete novice when it comes to this stuff. Last year, I was tied for first place for most accurate mock draft last year. It was my first time doing it. It was probably beginner's luck. I'm not going to sit here and say that my word is gospel, but I am going to sit here and say I'm decent. So just watch, enjoy. I'm going to make these picks. They're not all going to be perfect. Like I said, I got a little bit weird, a little bit out there with this mock draft. Now, first up, we have the Panthers. And I decided, again, we're going to have some fun. We're going to get weird. I'm going to release my official mock draft that'll go towards like the scoring and everything at the end of the month, like literally the day before the NFL draft. There will probably be like no trades, and it'll be literally super chalk and super, I'm just trying to get it as accurate as possible. This one, I was like, let's think outside of the box. So at the top here, it's been Stroud the entire offseason, but we've seen some line shift down in Vegas where I think FanDuel had Stroud at like minus 330 to go first overall, which is like, I want to say like 75, 80% chance. And now it's just minus 130 with Bryce Young steaming up to like minus 105. It's like a coin flip. I would say it's more like 60-40 that CJ Stroud goes first overall. So I figured, what? Daniel Jeremiah sort of been pumping some steam into the Bryce Young first overall train. Apparently did really good on like this new Wonderlic. I think it's called like the S2 test or something. I don't know. I like the idea of the Panthers kind of like throwing up a smoke screen with CJ Stroud, going Bryce Young here, picking their quarterback of the future to build their future around. Now, if Bryce Young goes 1, this is where it gets super, super tricky because I don't think they would take CJ Stroud here at 2. I think if Bryce Young is there, they will take Bryce Young. But if CJ Stroud is here at 2, this is where the issue is. CJ Stroud is represented by the same agent, apparently, as Deshaun Watson. I don't think Houston wants to even have that sort of relationship with that agent again. And I'm sure the agent doesn't want to have CJ Stroud with the Texans. So the big story right now is that if CJ Stroud is there, that he won't end up being a Texan. So you have a few choices here for the Texans if they don't take Stroud. They can take a non-Stroud quarterback, right? They can take Will Levis. They can take Anthony Richardson if they like. They can go best player available and just get a blue chipper and Will Anderson, or they can trade back. And I thought long and hard about having them trade up and or trade back and having a team, I don't know, like the Seahawks come up and take CJ Stroud. But why not shoot for max upside if you're Houston? He has had all kinds of buzz. We really don't know what the Texans are ever thinking. Like their front office is like fairly new-ish. Their owner always has a hand in what's going on. They brought in a new coach into Mecco Ryans. They have a new offensive coordinator. And I think his name's like PFF Bobby. I can't remember his actual name, but I know it's Bob. I think that they go here, and if you're a team like Houston that has so many holes, why not shoot for the absolute upside case scenario? Take Anthony Richardson, shoot for somebody that could be, one of the most dynamic, electric players in the NFL. And if you completely whiff on it, there's enough holes on this team that you're probably picking in the top 5 again next year and have your choose of, Caleb Williams, Drake May, whatever. So why not take an absolute big daddy swing on Anthony Richardson? Now, this is where it gets interesting. CJ Stroud is now available number 3 on the clock. And I'd have to think if this happens in real life, every team will be on the phone with the Cardinals. The Cardinals, of course, have Kyler Murray. They have no use to take a quarterback here. They could trade back a couple spots, maybe still net one of these blue chippers up top, like Jalen Carter, Will Anderson. Tyree Wilson's even kind of in that conversation at this point. So I'm going to have Detroit trade up here. We're going to have Detroit trade up. Now, I want to say, big fat disclaimer, guys. Please, please, please. I don't want to hear about the compensation, okay? Oh, that trade's way too lopsided. I'm not a pro when it comes to draft day trades. There's only been a handful of them over the last like 5 to 10 years, right? So the compensation here isn't important at all. I used the Washington trade where Washington moved from 6 to 2 overall to take Robert Griffin III in 2012. That was super long ago, but they gave up their 6th, their 39th, and 2 future firsts to move up to number 2 overall. I'm being way kinder here. I am making the Lions give up their 6th, their 18th, and they're just going up to 3 just for that. Again, the compensation does not matter. It really doesn't, because it doesn't affect the rest of the first round, really, outside of that 18th overall pick. If you think that it should be a first, or if you think that it should be, a 96 from the Cardinals side, I don't care. Whatever you think, the compensation really does not matter. Now, the reason I think that this happens is, first off, we have the Cardinals who have a million holes. Kyler Murray isn't even going to be playing for the first half of the season, so you just have a dumpster fire of a team. I think that they probably want to plug a bunch of holes and just look forward to next season. Maybe they get a future first in this sort of like trade package. I'm not sure. But I have them getting 18th here. Now, again, they can move back to 6, still get like a blue chipper, and then they can fill another hole with that 18th pick. So I think that would be absolutely huge for the Cardinals. Now, on the other side, you have the Lions. And I think that this is going to be a little bit surprising for a lot of people, where they're like, why would the Lions trade up to get a quarterback? Like, Jared Goff has been great, and he has been great. But I think that you have to put yourself in the shoes of the Lions here, and they have to be thinking to themselves, this is a really, really strong roster. The roster is very good. They're a team that's going to compete now. They're going to try and make the playoffs. This is probably the highest they're going to pick over the next like 2 to 3 years if they believe in themselves. So why not use that 6th overall pick that you got in the Goff deal and go get a quarterback? Again, I get that Jared Goff has been good for them, but Jared Goff isn't the long-term answer. They saved $25 million by cutting him after this season. He's a free agent after the 2024 season. He's clearly not the long-term answer there, and you have to think that the Detroit Lions are fully aware of sort of the meta in the NFL of winning with a quarterback on a rookie deal. So why not grab CJ Stroud, who's kind of just Jared Goff but better in every way? You can run the same exact offense, and you can run a better quarterback in that offense for a fraction of the price. I think it makes so much sense. I think it makes a ton of sense on all sides here. Why not go do it? I also think they had a little bit of a quote, the GM, where he was like, I've already talked to Jared Goff. We're going to be looking at quarterbacks. So I think that's something that could happen. If CJ Stroud slips, if Young slips, one of these quarterbacks slip, I think the Lions could just stay tight and take him at 6, or they could trade up and grab a quarterback. And I think because Stroud is falling, it makes a ton of sense for them to do this. So we'll have them trade up. Oh, didn't mean to click trade again. And then they will take CJ Stroud here at the 103. And you would think, I think in most cases this ends up being Anthony Richardson, but because he goes 2nd overall, you have the Colts staring down the barrel of Will Levis at 4th overall, which doesn't feel good at all. But they have a new head coach and Shane Steichen coming in here. They've had years of Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, just terrible, terrible quarterback play. And they're finally picking in the top 5. Why not take a quarterback here? There's been rumors that like Irsay and Ballard like these toolsy, Josh Allen-like quarterbacks. Will Levis fits that build. Again, with these guys and these quarterbacks that you take in the top 5, if they're bad in year 1, you'll likely be picking high once again that following year. So why not take an absolute hack on Will Levis and see what happens there? Now, this is where things sort of settle down. We get to the 5th overall pick. We have 4 quarterbacks go in a row here. And this is where things get a little bit chalky. We have Seattle here. And I think that they don't overthink it. Even though that they have been a wild card in the past, I think you can pencil in Tyree Wilson here if you want to, or even Jalen Carter. But we'll go Will Anderson. He's like very clearly the best player in this draft, or best non-quarterback in this draft. He has averaged over a sack per game in the SEC over his final 2 years. He has been sort of like looked at as the Chase Young of this class. So we'll take Will Anderson there. The Seahawks have a really nice perimeter guy in Tariq Woolen. Why not add somebody to rush the passer at 5th overall? Now, the Cardinals moved back to 6th overall, and this is exactly what they wanted. A guy that they were debating taking at 3, Tyree Wilson is on the board here. They go Tyree Wilson. They finished last year with the 10th lowest sack total at just 36, and they're losing like half of that production with J.J. Watt retiring and Zach Allen going to Denver. So they sort of replenish some of that defensive line help here. They get Tyree Wilson. They pass on a guy in Jalen Carter who has some off the field issues. He's also interior, so some teams are going to, want to shy away from that so high. So I think Tyree Wilson does make sense there. Then after that, you have the Raiders picking here. And they've been linked to quarterback, right? They've been linked to like Will Levis. They've been linked to Anthony Richardson. The issue is, like, after last year, I really don't know that Josh McDaniels has time to wait for a quarterback to develop. It seems like he sort of needs to bring results in quickly here. Like, he just had 1 year with Derek Carr. It didn't go so well. I don't know how many years he has left. I don't know that he has a year or two to wait for a quarterback to pop down the line. I think he needs difference makers right away. And we saw corners go super high last year. You saw Sauce go like 4th overall. You saw Derek Stingley go like 2nd overall. I think that these two quarterbacks, Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez, are going to go higher than everybody thinks. Like, it wouldn't shock me if one of them went in the top 5, but we'll take Christian Gonzalez here. The Raiders' entire defense is terrible. Their only good player on the defense is Max Crosby. You sort of figure that, like, yes, they could go Jalen Carter, but they probably believe that, like, Max Crosby can carry that unit, and they probably want to allocate resources to the secondary first before sort of like stacking up the defensive line. Now, 8th overall, we have the Falcons here. I think the Falcons would have loved Christian Gonzalez as a nice corner. I think they would have loved Tyree Wilson here. They're all gone. So they're staring down the board here. They already have offensive line. I don't think that they're dying to take on Jalen Carter. So they trade back. I have the Eagles, who have been really aggressive in these past couple of years, trading up, trading down in the NFL draft. I have the Eagles trading up just from number 10. And again, the compensation might be off here, but I have the Eagles trading away their 10 and 62 for the Falcons 8 and 110. They go up and they grab Jalen Carter to go next to Jordan Davis. Now they have the most monstrous D-line in the NFL. They have Jalen Carter, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, and Howie Roseman is a god when it comes to this. He brings in guys before the players go down. So he brings in Jalen Carter before Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are on their way out, and he just keeps on backloading these units. So Jalen Carter in there, it's a little bit out of character for them to trade up into the top 10 and get an interior defensive lineman, but I think it makes sense here. This is a top 5 talent that's slipping because of like red flags or whatever, and I think it would make sense to go with him at number 8. Now we have number 9 here. The Bears are up. They trade back from the 1st overall pick to number 9. They net a bunch of picks. They get DJ Moore. And you have to think that this pick gets used on the offense. I have to imagine this entire season for them is, can Justin Fields be the guy? And if he's not the guy, then we probably don't play good and we have a pick inside the top 5. So I think that they have to build around him. They already gave him a weapon, and this could be JSN. They could get him another weapon, but I think it's going to be Paris Johnson, offensive tackle. This was a team that allowed the second most pressures last year, and they have to protect the blind side of their franchise quarterback. So they go Paris Johnson here. He's athletic. He's like a pretty prototypical left tackle, it seems like. I think that would be perfect for what the Bears are looking for up front. Now we have the Falcons, and I have a Google sheet that I've been looking at. It was by at Cleve TA. He's like a Cleveland analytics guy, and he mapped out all the front office's tendencies, over all of their tenures so far. Anyone that's like active, right, that has multiple drafts under their belt. And the Falcons over the last few seasons have been in league bottom in terms of taking premium positions. So quarterbacks, wide receivers, tackles, corners, edge. They don't care a ton. Only 43% of their picks in the last 2 drafts have been premium positions in the top 2 rounds. So they are very much open to taking non-premium positions here. And I think when you have Arthur Smith, who whiffed on getting one of those quarterbacks, and like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, and you have a guy who runs the ball a lot, saw a lot of success with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, I'm going to assume that the Falcons make a move, trade for Ryan Tannehill, and they sort of try and replicate this offense by bringing in Bijan Robinson to be their bell cow and to be the centerpiece of Arthur Smith's offense. Bijan Robinson finally off the board, 10th overall. Now, after that, we have the Tennessee Titans, and this spot has a new GM. So it's tough to gauge sort of where they would lean here. It seems like Derrick Henry could be on the move. It seems like Ryan Tannehill could be on the move, as I said, with the Falcons. And this was a team that allowed the highest pressure rate last year to their quarterback. And they need someone to fill in for Taylor Lewan. And like they've whiffed on tackles in the past. I got the one guy from Georgia. I can't remember his name. I think he was Georgia, but like he was just an absolute flop. So I think that they try again here. They go with a very high floor offensive lineman who some say is like too small to play tackle. Maybe he kicks inside the guard, but just a foundational piece for their offensive line. Peter Skoronski. I think he makes a lot of sense for them. Stack on an O-lineman for what seems to be the start of a pretty hefty rebuild for the Titans. Now, 12th overall. The Texans could go a ton of different ways. I think they can go like Luke Van Ness or Nolan Smith and get an edge. Maybe maybe they trade back here. But instead, they took their quarterback at number 2 overall. You have to think that they want to set him up to succeed. I don't know why I'm struggling to talk today. And they go out here and they grab JSN. They give him just somebody that is going to be really wide open for Anthony Richardson, not make anything too difficult for him, and just give Anthony Richardson all the tools he needs to succeed. And if not, then JSN will be great for the next quarterback that they get down the line. Now, 13th overall, we have my beloved Jets here. And sadly, it's a bummer. I love for my Jets. I love Paris Johnson. I love JSN for my Jets. I think JSN would be really fun. Him next to Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football. That's no longer on the board. I think Darnell Wright is definitely on their mind, a tackle out of Tennessee, but I think ultimately they go Broderick Jones, who's like this like freak athlete out of Georgia. Probably could have stayed another year, but he's sort of raw, he's exciting, he's athletic. And I think that they grab him so that they have him, Mekhi Becton, they have Elijah Vera Tucker on the interior, possibly getting Ben Jones from the Titans and just putting together an absolutely stacked offensive line for Aaron Rodgers to operate behind, for Breece Hall to run behind. So give me Broderick Jones. There's like clips of him like playing basketball and dunking the ball. He is an absolute freak. Then we have the Patriots, who are sort of a wild card with what they do. Like we saw last year when they took Cole Strange, who I think was like a guard out of some random school last year in the first round. So you never really know what they're going to do. I think that they take Devin Witherspoon. He's probably fallen too far here. Ideally, Devin Witherspoon, I think it probably goes somewhere between like Carter and like Skoronski here. But because he's still on the board, we'll take best player available. The Patriots could definitely use a guy like Witherspoon in a division that has, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek, Waddle, Garrett Wilson. So why not get a true, number 1 type corner right there? Now, we have the Packers, who have taken a defensive player in 11 of their last 12 first-round picks, which is absolutely insane. But I have to kind of imagine, like almost in spite towards Aaron Rodgers, that they finally get some help for their quarterback. They're rolling with Jordan Love. They have to make sure that he actually has some weapons. And this is a team that also doesn't value premium positions, also doesn't really value, the money ball sort of aspect of football. So I think that they sort of make a weird pick here, and they take a guy who's been like weirdly climbing up draft boards, Dalton Kincaid. He is now the favorite on FanDuel to be the first tight end taken. He's in Daniel Jeremiah's top 10 players like on his big board. For a guy that didn't test at all, he is screaming up draft boards. They get Dalton Kincaid and give Jordan Love a nice like tight end safety blanket to have, in that passing game that futures like Christian Watson, Aaron Jones out of the backfield, just a nice little piece to add on there. Now, Washington, absolute wild card with what they could do here. I think Hendon Hooker's in play. If Bijan Robinson was on the board, I think Bijan Robinson would be in play. I think you can make the case for like interior offensive line, tight end, the linebackers, but I'm just not sure there's any in this range that they would be thrilled to take on. So I think we're going to take a corner here. Let's take Joey Porter Jr. They have, I think as of right now, like Cameron Dantzler slated to be like their starting outside corner, which is really troubling. So why not take Joey Porter and instantly get somebody on the perimeter at corner that can, start on day one for you. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers up next, and they have a lot of needs. They need offensive line, they need linebacker, they need DB. We address none of that. We take best player available. I think the Steelers are one of those teams that just do take best player available more often than not. And this is a team that prides himself on defense. I think it would be really good for them to grab a guy like Luke Van Ness, who is just a very, athletic, pass rusher. He can play inside. He can play outside. And just add him to their biggest strength and just create a surplus there where Luke Van Ness, TJ Watt, all of those guys are humming after the quarterback and they're winning, the Steeler way. They can attack sort of everything else that they need in this draft later on. Then we have the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are really weird to gauge here where I'm not really sure what they would do at 18. I think that there's some guys they could take a swing on. I think Myles Murphy makes some sense, but if they took an edge rusher at 6, I don't know that they double up on edge rushers. So I'm going to take corner. They got rid of Byron Murphy. All of their corners are pretty terrible right now too. So I think why not just throw a draft pick at Deonte Banks. He had a 10 out of 10 perfect RAS score. That's something that GMs sort of gravitate towards. We don't have much data on Arizona, but I think Deonte Banks would make some sense to fill that hole that Byron Murphy left behind. Next up, we have Tampa Bay. And it's pretty clear that they are, I wouldn't say like actively tanking for next year, but they're not a team that's going to be, competitive, winning games, anything. I was debating a tackle here. I do think Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee, makes sense. They need somebody opposite of Tristan Wirfs, but I also think Myles Murphy has fallen too far. Myles Murphy's a guy who's like massive. Like he has very similar measurables to like Trayvon Walker and Rashawn Gary as like these like huge, freaky outside edge rushers, but he is a project. But I think the Buccaneers have enough time to kind of develop him before like their next, I guess, like winning window, which could be another like 2-3 years. And I don't think that Todd Bowles can help himself if he saw someone like Myles Murphy on the board. So we'll take Myles Murphy for them. Again, it's kind of a weird pick for them, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Now we have the Seahawks here. And the Seahawks have a lot of guys that they would like here. Like I think Kalijah Kancey makes sense for them. I think Brian Brzee. I think Nolan Smith makes sense. I think a lot of these interior guys too, like Osiris Torrance makes sense. They see a lot of guys that they like on the board. So I'm going to have them trading back here. We have yet another trade, and we have the Giants on the phone. The Giants see a wide receiver they really want. They come up and take him. So they give up their 25 and their 89, and they move up 5 spots to the 20th overall pick. Again, that conversation might be off. Sue me. I truly don't know. Okay, so I think that looks about right on paper. We'll have that offered and accepted here, and we'll have the Giants come up here and take Quentin Johnston. Now, the reason I had them do that is I just think the way the Giants are right now with Darren Waller and all these slot wide receivers like Wandale and Jamison Crowder and Paris Campbell and Darius Slayton on the outside, they don't have a true physical perimeter type wide receiver. I think Quentin Johnston really fits that build, and I think we could see Brian Daboll get creative with how he uses him and schemes him and puts him in the best possible places to succeed. Now, after that, 21st overall, we have the Chargers here, and I have them taking Jordan Addison. He's staying in Southern California, or I guess not Southern California. I don't know where in California LA is, but they take Jordan Addison, and Hayden Wings had a cool tweet that he highlighted where Jordan Addison originally committed to Maryland. The wide receiver coach that was at Maryland went to Pittsburgh. Jordan Addison followed him to Pittsburgh, and now that same wide receiver coach works for the Chargers. So you connect the dots. There's already a connection there. They need a wide receiver, and I like a guy like Jordan Addison who, I think Quentin Johnston would be just like a mimic or a clone of what they have in Mike Williams, and he's someone that can play inside out, kind of like learn the nuances of route running even more so from Keenan Allen and really fit there as a nice number 3 option that can kind of, work his way up or fill in because they've had injuries in the past with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, all of that. Now, our next pick is the Ravens, and all signs point to the Ravens taking a wide receiver. Like their wide receiver core is absolutely atrocious, right? They have, I don't even know, they have like Nelson Aguilar, of course, Bateman, Devin Duvernay. Like, it's not pretty. But when you look here, like, I just don't know that they would take a guy like Zay Flowers. Like, they already have that, like, sort of, like, small Devin Duvernay type build. Not obviously Zay Flowers, you're a rich version of Devin Duvernay, but I don't know that's what they're looking for. And I think when we look at the Ravens, who pride themselves on having a strong defense, they haven't had a double-digit sack guy since Terrell Suggs in 2017. Last year, their only player over 6 sacks was Justin Houston, who's 34 years old and a free agent. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go out here, get an edge rusher. I think Nolan Smith probably slipped too far in this mock draft, a guy who absolutely murdered the combine, probably goes top 15, but slides here. I don't think the Ravens can help themselves, and they go best player available with Nolan Smith. After that, we have the Vikings. I would have absolutely loved to give them Deonte Banks. I can't stress that enough. I think giving them Deonte Banks would have made a lot of sense. They need a corner bad. I think literally all they have is Byron Murphy on the inside. Outside of that, they need DBs. The issue is that there's no good DBs. I think you can maybe make the case for like Cam Smith or something here. Maybe they trade back and they take a Cam Smith later on, but I think they go wide receiver here. And like I think it would make more sense if it was Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, but I have them taking Zay Flowers here. This is somebody that the NFL likes a lot. Like I think that he's maybe the second favorite to be the first wide receiver taken behind JSN. I think that he might even go higher than 23rd overall, but we'll take Zay Flowers. I just don't see the Vikings going into the year with just Jefferson and Osborne as their wide receivers. There's just no way. I think that they have to sort of strengthen that, right? To sort of, I mean, not hide Kirk Cousins, but just give Kirk Cousins enough weapons so that he doesn't have to win you football games. I think Zay Flowers gives you a really fun option as a second and third option that can play inside, outside, plays bigger than his size. I think you would add a nice dynamic element to the offense, kind of more in the yards after the catch, explosive type area. I don't know why I'm struggling to move up and down the draft board, but at 24, we'll have the Jaguars make kind of a weird pick. Like, it's hard to mock somebody to take Brian Branch, who's a safety out of Alabama, but this is a Jaguars team that started the year so strong on defense. It was so weird. They were one of the best defenses in all of football through the first, 5 weeks, and then towards the end, it just absolutely fell apart, and they ended up 30th in pass defense efficiency on Football Outsiders, pass DVOA defense. They need help in the secondary. Brian Branch is somebody that is really strong, but he plays at a non-premium position, right? He plays like safety, nickel corner. But I think because he's so good and he's an instant sort of contributor right away, it would make a lot of sense for the Jaguars to get a guy like Brian Branch, which then takes us to the Seattle Seahawks here, who traded back with the Giants. And here, they added to their perimeter of the offensive line last offseason. They took, I think, Abraham Lucas, Charles Cross in the draft. They both have been pretty damn good. And now they shore up the inside of the offensive line for their franchise quarterback, Geno Smith. And they go out here and they take Osiris Torrance, like a very weird name here. But Osiris Torrance, he's a guy that can play guard. He's not ultra physical, or he's not ultra athletic, but the Seahawks have a past of not really valuing freak athletes early on anyway, so it doesn't really matter a ton. I think that he fits there, and he can play guard for them right away. Now, this is another one that's a little bit tough to sort of gauge. If Bijan was available, I guess Bijan could kind of make some sense for the Cowboys. I think a tight end does. If Michael Mayer goes here, it wouldn't shock me at all. But I've been informed that they are very comfortable with Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, so I go and I give them Kalijah Cansey here, just a freak defensive lineman that can play between Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and just sort of add to the havoc that defensive line creates. I think that would be really fun to watch. And if they do attack, your tight end, running back room, wide receiver room, I think it probably happens on day 2 for the Cowboys. Now, this one's really weird. I would have loved to give the Bills Zay Flowers for all the same reasons. We gave the Vikings Zay Flowers, just because this is a weak wide receiver room. But we don't have that luxury. So I'm going to reach a little bit here. I think that this would be a reach that makes sense for the Bills. This is a guy who tested above a 9.5 RAS. He plays in the secondary, which is something that the Bills could use a lot of help in. And it's Cam Smith. I think he had a down year this year, but he had a really good year the year previous. He tested a lot better than people thought that he would test. He's a guy that is kind of reminds me, just again, I don't watch these guys. I'm not an expert when it comes to the DBs or the linemen or anything, but Cam Smith has come off to me kind of like a Trevon Diggs type, where he gets beat a lot, but he also makes a lot of really impressive plays on the ball. And I think a team like the Bills can afford having that sort of all or nothing type mindset at just a second or third DB type option scenario. Now, this Bengals pick, a lot of people want this to be a tight end. A lot of people want this to be Jahmyr Gibbs, running back. Sadly, the Bengals have actually been pretty sharp. They're top 5 in percentage of their top 2-round picks being premium positions. And Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee, falls right into their laps here. Of course, they did grab Orlando Brown Jr. from the Chiefs, but Lael Collins on the other side tore his ACL in the playoffs last year, so he's not going to be ready to go until probably really late into this season. And they get Darnell Wright here, somebody that can just plug in, start right away at right or left tackle, whatever they need. And be a decent contributor. Now, after that, we have New Orleans, who I think is a decent bet to take Michael Mayer here, but I also think that they like Juwan Johnson a lot more than people think. So I'm going to have them take Will McDonald, who some people absolutely just rave about this guy, Will McDonald. Again, I don't really do any study on kind of the, defensive players especially, but he seems like a freak. He's an edge rusher, and the Saints part of ways like Marcus Davenport and like 3 other defensive line guys that played meaningful snaps, so they need to kind of replenish that area. Dennis Allen sort of shifts defensive area, so why not give them Will McDonald? I don't know why I can't talk right now, but I'm going to give them Will McDonald. Now, after that, we have a trade. I don't feel great about this trade. I think you could make the case that this pick could be the Seahawks here, but if not, again, the Eagles move around a lot, and if they traded up earlier on, I don't mind betting on them to trade back here. So I'm going to have them trading back with the Titans. Where are the Titans? Is it not alphabetical order? So the Titans are here. Next pick 41, and we have the Eagles go up their 30th and their 110 for 41 and 72. They trade back. The Titans trade up, and they grab their quarterback of the future. They either move on from Ryan Tannehill or they have Hendon Hooker play behind Ryan Tannehill, but they take Hendon Hooker. They have the hometown kid stay in Tennessee. They get some cost control on him with that 5th-year option, and they grab Hendon Hooker that has been making some noise that he could be a back end of the first pick. So I figure, you know what, why not have a mock where he does make the back end of the first round? Then we have the Chiefs here, and I kind of wanted to take Jalen Hyatt just to sort of add to the speed of their offense, and I think it would make sense, but they also have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's kind of I'm not going to call him a Jalen Hyatt clone, but he kind of does a similar thing in terms of field stretching and being one-dimensional. So I'm going to have them fill the hole that Orlando Brown left behind. I know that they have Lucas Niang that they like, third-round guy at a TCU, I think, from a couple years ago, but you can really never have enough offensive linemen, so why not take Anton Harrison here, who I think can play either side of the line, and they lost Orlando Brown Jr. They brought in Jawan Taylor, who I think has played right tackle most of the time, so they bring Anton Harrison that can just right away start at tackle for them. They don't miss a beat from leaving behind Orlando Brown, but they still, add to their offensive line. Their offensive line was such a strength in the Super Bowl, I think that they would want to beef it back up. So why not go Anton Harrison? And there we go. That is our mock draft 1.0. Again, I cannot stress enough. Compensation and trades, that's not going to be 100% accurate. This was a lot of fun, just making trades up and down the board. I will have one that is a lot more chalky a couple days before the NFL draft, and that will be the official one I submit for the accuracy contest. So feel free down below, yell at me for why I screwed this up, why your team isn't going to make the pick that I had them make, whatever, scream at me. I know that mock drafts are pretty polarizing, but I do have fun just kind of I don't know, there is something fun about solving the puzzle of going through each team and what is this team going to do, what is their thoughts on the clock, all of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a non-fantasy football video, but I think it is still interesting to go through and kind of see what teams are thinking through, in and around our fantasy players, right? With Bryce Young at 1, Anthony Richardson at 2, of course. There's plenty of guys that are relevant. So with all that being said, I have nothing to plug here. This was for my entertainment, my own fun, your entertainment. So if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. If not, leave a comment. Let me know why you absolutely hated that mock draft. And I will see you guys. I usually say in the next one, but I will see you guys. Hold me to this. I think I'm going to stream tonight. We'll do a big board but super flex draft. So see me then. I'll probably stream about 8 p.m. Turn notifications on, and I'm sure it'll let you know when I'm streaming. So as always, I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Meaner's dream.